Parshas Ki Savo is an interesting parsha because it has the tochacha. And tochacha talks about all the curses. Also, Parshas Ki Savo is interesting because it has around a handful of mitzvahs in it. The main mitzvah that everyone discusses is the mitzvah of Bikurim. The mitzvah of Bikurim, the reason why it gets more attention than everything else, which mitzvah Bikurim is, of course, bringing the first fruits. We'll see what fruits really mean. Is because the first 11 psukim of the parsha discuss the mitzvah bikurim, and most people only discuss the beginning of the parsha, and therefore the rest of the parsha is really irrelevant as long as you know the beginning. The mitzvah bikurim was fulfilled and practiced in the days when the Beis Hamikdash was around, between the holiday of Shavuos and Sukkot. This mitzvah is mentioned twice in Sefer Shmos, Chav Gimel Yutes Lamed Daled Chavav. Also in Sefer Bamidbar, in the 18th parak, it's mentioned. Also Gimel. And then it's taught again in Sefer Devarim, which is where we are right now. Why? Why is it mentioned so many times? Well, the reason why it's repeated in Devarim, in this week's Parsha, is to teach us very important halachic nuances and specifics regarding fulfilling this mitzvah. The pasuk says, "V'lakachtem ereshis kol pri adama." Take from the first fruits of the ground. And we derive from this pasuk, the rabbis teach us, that we could only bring the bikurim from what's called the Shevas Haminim, which is the pasuk, Chita Sa'ira Gefen Teina Rimon Zayishem and Dvash, which means wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olive oil specifically, not just any oil, and dvash, honey, which dvash is actually not referring to honey from bees, but honey from dates. It's another discussion of itself, why we specifically dip in bee honey during Rosh Hashanah. I'll have to come back to that as opposed to date honey. It's a few interesting explanations over there. Now, the Chiddush, the tremendously interesting insight regarding the mitzvah bikurim, which is taught in this week's parsha, in Parshas Ki Savo, is there's two aspects of bikurim. There's the hava, bringing the actual bikurim. We'll discuss. You have to bring it to Yerushalayim. We'll discuss specifics momentarily. And then there's what's called the mikra bikurim. A lot of the bachrim know this in yeshiva from learning makos towards the end of the Masechta. This is referring to the mikra bikurim. You have to announce. This is when the farmer comes with the basket of bikurim. He brings it to the Kohen in the Beis Hamikdash. First, he begins his words. He prefaces it by expressing his gratitude to Hashem. He's talking to Hashem over here. He's saying, bring it to the land that Hashem commanded our ancestors, forefathers. And then he adds other psukim, and he talks about how Yaakov descended to Egypt, and the whole shibud, the whole subjugation in Egypt. And then he concludes, now I'm going to bring the first fruits. There's a few reasons for this mitzvah of bikurim. Sefer Chinuch discusses in this week's parsha as well as in mitzvah Sadi Aleph this. And basically, in short, what he says is we want to uproot from the heart of the farmer the concept of koichi boitzim yadio asul liyasachayla. We don't want the farmer to say, "Oh wow, look at me and my 200-acre property and the millions of dollars that I'm generating over here. I've got a great business that I built from all of my hard work, from waking up early in the morning, from working really, really hard, from employing a lot of employees." We don't want him to get arrogant. This removes potential arrogance or giving himself credit, realizing that it's Hashem. Similarly, the Rambam writes, that the reason for Bikurim is Hachna and Hishtavdus. It's that we make ourselves lower in front of Hashem, subservient. We subjugate ourselves to Hashem. And we break the characteristics, the midas of Taiva and Gaiva, so that we remove from ourselves any desires that we have or arrogance that we have. The Bina Le'itim says, and Parshas Torah quotes all this, says that the purpose of the mitzvah of Bikurim is to break our arrogance and our taivas achila, our desires for eating. People, they make it like a religion or a sport nowadays, eating and all these things. We only live to eat. We don't eat. We only, eat to live. We don't live to eat. Now, the farmer was patiently waiting for when he could have the food from his field. And he sees, look at that beautiful fig. It's going to be so delicious. Look at that beautiful grape. Nevertheless, he's koivish his yitzra. He conquers his evil inclination and his desire for his body, and he doesn't eat the bikurim. Rather, what does he do? As it says in the beginning of the third parak of Maseches Bikurim, yes, there's a whole Masechta just on this one mitzvah. And not only is there a Masechta of Mishnayos, but for those who aren't aware, because they're only in the world of the Bavli, there's also Yerushalmi on it. It's a whole Masechta in Yerushalmi. It's not a very long Masechta, but there's still a long Masechta. So what does he do? In the Mishnah Bikurim says in the third parak, he wraps it, gimme around it, a type of like reed. And he marks it, and he says, I can't eat this. This is Bikurim. This is for Hashem. Harizu Bikurim. So with this, he's already maintaining himself. He's controlling his desires. He's harnessing his energy, not to be a glutton. Because having these desires is a bad characteristic. As it says in Avos in the fourth parak, Hakina v'atayv v'kavod mutziyin es ha'adam min ha'olam. Jealousy, lusts, desires, and honor remove a person from this world. How does Bikurim break a person's arrogance? Let's say, for example, you have a king or a prince, and he has many cities and villages that he owns. Even the king, he has to show his humility, express and demonstrate his humility over here. He takes the basket of Bikurim, he puts it on his shoulders, so to say, and he carries it from Har HaBayis until the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. And he himself, not a messenger, it's mitzvah sha'al gufo, should be gufo, you have to do it yourself. He brings to the Kohen, who is working at that time. And even if the Kohen has a net worth of 3 peanuts, he's very poor. Nevertheless, this king who has the net worth of $1 trillion, he has to come and stand by the Kohen with tremendous humility. And he has to read the Parsha Bikurim in front of him. That helps remove the arrogance from this king. He becomes humble. This is a very important characteristic. The Parshas Ki Savo is always lamed. We only lame this. We always read about it in the month of Elul. Elul was the last month of the year. The Gemara Megillah on Lamed Aleph Amud Beis says that Ezra HaSofer enacted the Jews that the klalos, the toichachal, should be the curses, the rebuke should be read at this time. There are 98 curses in this parsha. The Gemara says you want to end the curses, wrap it up, wrap the curses. That's it. Finish off the year with them, and the next year you start with that and you start fresh. 98. If they decree, God forbid, from heaven, difficulties on us, so now it's just going to be, the difficulties will be granted just by reciting them, so to say. Like it says in Hosea, it should just be words, it shouldn't actually happen. That's the idea over here. We'll end with this interesting gematria over here. If you look at the words in the Parsha, the amount of words in this week's Parsha, Ki Savo, it equals 676. Tafresh Ayin Vav, Siman Hilchos Chanukah. What does that have to do with anything? This corresponds to the gematria. This is equivalent to the numerical value of Ra'os. Reish and the Tuf is 600. Ayin and the Vav is 76. 676. Bad. We have mentioned Hashem's name 26 times. Yud Ke Vav Ke, which is also the gematria of Hashem's name. If you take 26 times 26, the gematria of Hashem's name and the times that is mentioned in this parsha, that is equivalent to 676. That's right. And that's why the pasuk in Tehillim Lamed Daled Chaf alludes to this. Rabbois ra'oi saduk u'mekulam yatzilenu Hashem. Tension of this pasuk is the name of Hashem gets repeated over here 26 times. A lot of the ra'os of the tzaddik, that's going to save the righteous person. It's going to save him from the 676 words, meaning the curses, which is the gematria of ra'os. Hashem will save the righteous person from all of the ra'os, aka the curses and the rebuke. This week's parsha, 676 words. Fascinating gematria. It's hard to think of that one.
No joke.
Yeah. So, look, what else could we say about Bikurim? We could say there's a whole Masechta. Rambam talks about it. A lot to learn about it. Very important mitzvah, special mitzvah. That's what we could say in short. Spend hours, days, weeks, months learning about Bikurim. Very special mitzvah.
Wait, 676 was how many? How many? What is it in this parsha?
Words in the parsha.
That's it?
What do you mean that's it?